On this week's episode, we look ahead to the Canadian Grand Prix, but will we have a Canadian driver? Hello everyone, welcome to Back of the Grid. I'm Chris, joined as ever by Tom.
Hello.
And it has been a uneventful week in Formula One.
It's been an uneventful week in motorsport in general, to be fair.
Yeah, it has actually.
One of those weeks where you go from a couple of weekends where everything feels like it's happening at once in all the different sports and categories and everything else to a weekend that's relatively quiet in the most part. I mean, the Isle of Man TT started last weekend.
Yeah.
But I think that's about it that I can remember. So
that's all that the algorithm has shown me online.
Yeah, that's
anyway.
it. That's all I've seen in the algorithm. That's all the algorithm wants us to know about.
Yeah. So sort of an extended storylines leading to the weekend this week, I guess. First of all, Lance Stroll still been very quiet on what's going on with him. As we know, he had to sit out the race in Barcelona because of what seems like a reoccurrence of the hand injury that he had pre-season a couple of years ago. They said he needed another procedure on it, but no news on if that happened, how it went, whether he's going to be there this weekend or not. That kind of need to decide soon because, as we discussed last week, their two main reserves are Drugovich and Van Dorn, both of whom are scheduled to be racing at Le Mans this weekend.
Yep.
I feel like I've read in an interview with all these headlines saying Drugovich is ready to drop Le Mans and will be F1 no matter what, and also one with him saying, my focus is on Le Mans, I'm not worried about anything else going on. So who knows? But I think he'd be crazy not to take the opportunity if it came up.
Yeah.
Like, he's stuck around waiting for something like this to show what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's looking likely, but the fact that we've not heard anything maybe leans more towards the fact that Stroll might need replacing, because it's like not any remote confirmation of he's fine, he'll be in the car. Not even any hints at it either.
You'd expect them to kind of put the rumours to bed if he definitely was going to be in the car by now, wouldn't you?
And like you say, with their main reserve drivers both being scheduled to be in Le Mans, they need to be very careful about if he's actually going to be able to be in that car, because there will come a point where those two guys will be like more or less the other side of the world. Not literally, but Le Mans to Montreal is not the quickest flight. It's doable, but it's not very quick. And I can tell you a couple of Le Mans entries that will not be happy that their guys are getting taken that last minute and not having time to prepare whoever would step in for either of them, should either of them have to. I mean, I think of the two, Drugovich is definitely the more likely one. I think Van Dorn is definitely, I guess, sees his F1 days behind him for the most part, with his time in Formula E and WEC and things like that. So I think Van Dorn probably would stay for the Le Mans 24-hour, but Drugovich is more likely of the two to take up the opportunity. And like you say, it might be his last proper chance at giving it a go, if they do give him that opportunity. And we mentioned Jack Crawford last week, but we've since confirmed, after the briefly mentioned him in the chat, he doesn't have enough super license points to do it. So even though he's been in and around the team in recent weeks, he's not able to just jump in and do the sessions and enter the race. So it kind of has to be Drugovich, realistically, doesn't it, if it's going to be anyone?
And honestly, like, I feel like from the team point of view, like, this is a perfect opportunity to give him a go and see what he's capable of. Like, we know he did well in junior formula. We know he's highly regarded by the team and by other drivers. Like, honestly, if I was part of Aston Martin, I'd be like, don't worry, Lance, like, you take your time, recover, so you're fine for when you do come back. And let's give Drugovich a run. And I'd love to see him get the chance because he was really, really impressive in the junior formula, and it's a shame that it's not really panned out in F1 for him, at least so far.
Yeah. I secretly wonder how many... Well, it's not very secret now because I'm saying it on a podcast. I wonder how many Canadians out there in the world, if you're a Canadian out there listening, please feel free to reach out and answer this question for me. But how many Canadians are genuinely upset that they're not going to have Lance Stroll on the grid? Is it any? Or are they kind of like, good riddance, the guy is a bad representation of us as a nation anyway?
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like very interested because I feel like when you go to Montreal, you see far more Ferrari caps and Lewis caps and McLaren caps than you do Aston Martin.
So for sure.
It doesn't feel like it's a huge home race for Stroll. Let's all get behind him. It's like they just sort of like, no, he's not one of ours. Almost.
I'm picturing just like one row of seats of people in like head to toe Lance Stroll merch, surrounded by people from every other team.
Does he have his own stand like the likes of Alonso and Sainz do, for example, in Spain?
That's a good question, actually.
I wonder if there's a Lance Stroll stand in Montreal.
The Stroll stand.
Just his dad sat there. Just Lawrence on his own.
Yeah. Lawrence probably pays people to sit in that stand to make him look more popular.
Or it's just like Aston Martin staff or something like that. It's like, come to the race for free and sit in the Stroll stand.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out in the coming days because, as we say, they've got to make a choice. Paul in the chat said he saw a rumour about it, but potentially putting Bottas in the car. And I think if they couldn't use any of their reserves, Bottas probably would be who would get the seat because he's the Mercedes reserve and they use Mercedes engines, so there's a link there. So I imagine he would be the one to get that spot if not.
I mean, if silly season's anything to go by, they're going to swoop and steal George Russell at the last minute, and Bottas is going to have to drive the Mercedes. So...
Although hilariously, Bottas still has a 4 or 5 place grid penalty hanging over him from his last race last season.
Yeah, so if he does get on the grid, he's instantly got a 5-place grid. How long does that last for? Does it last forever? Or is it like so many years and then it
I'm
drops?
Not sure, actually, if those expire after a certain amount of time.
But
Jenson Button's still got one, hasn't he, as well? Or does he? Has that expired now?
Was that from when he stepped in at Monaco?
Yeah, when Alonso was doing the Indy 500.
Yeah. Wow, that was a lifetime ago.
I know.
This week's episode of Back to the Grid is brought to you by SeatFrog. SeatFrog is a super simple way to upgrade and adapt your train travel by providing a way to bid on first-class upgrades and swap pre-booked tickets if your plans change. You can join over 1.5 million people who've already saved money on train journeys today and get an additional £3 off your next booking with the code GridFrog at checkout. You can even buy discounted tickets outright through SeatFrog without having any added booking fees. So download the app today and start saving. And don't forget, use that code GridFrog for an extra £3 off your first purchase.
Moving on. We've got a special livery this weekend. It's Haas's 200th race in F1, which is pretty crazy to think about that they've been there that long now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've checked this or not, but where does that put them in the overall standings of races entered?
Probably higher than a lot of like really famous teams, I would imagine.
Well, that's kind of why I was asking, thinking, there must be a list out there somewhere of them. But yeah, it'd be interesting to sort of see where that puts them in terms of races entered overall.
I mean, I can only find the top 10. Arrows entered 394 races, but that took them from 1978 to 2002.
So that took 25 years.
Yeah, to do what Haas have done in half that time, probably.
Oh, I'm trying to think.
How long has Haas been around, actually?
2016 was their first year, so they've done 209 years. So they do it in 18 years. They probably do it in a little less than 18 years. Call it 17 years because the calendar keeps getting bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
it's growing and growing.
That's crazy. Although I suppose the other teams are... Well, how many teams above them are still current?
Oh, here we go. I've found the full list.
There you
go. Haas 19th on the all-time entries. Above BRM, March, Lola, Toyota, Cooper.
Crazy to think.
Yeah, and they're not far behind Force India and Alfa Romeo. I mean, Jordan only entered 250 races, and they were around for so many years.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan is what ultimately became Force India, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's
now Aston Martin.
I was about to say what's spiritual successor. That's Aston Martin, isn't it?
So I guess if you add them all together, they'll be a lot higher.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, they have a special livery, which is kind of a homage to their first ever livery back in 2016.
Yeah.
All this kind of made me realise is how bad their first livery was. Not as bad as some of the ones I've had, but it wasn't great.
I mean, in hindsight, I don't think it's as bad as we maybe thought it was at the time. But yeah. I went into this thinking, oh no, their first livery was that horrible solid grey thing. But it wasn't. That was like the second one they had. So I don't think any of them can ever be as bad as that one.
That one was atrocious.
That one was pretty bad. But that original one that they had, like when you actually look at the original 2016 one, felt like they were trying to go for a Vodafone McLaren kind of vibe.
Yeah, it did a little
like bit. Red rear wing and sort of silvery grey body. Just didn't quite pull it off in the same way. And what I'm intrigued by, which I've not seen a close enough shot of or anything that says, what is on the front wing? Is it a list of all the races entered? Because there's something along the bottom panel of the front wing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to work out like what it could be. My guesses were that it's either a list of all the races that they've entered, or it's possibly like a list of some key personnel or something like that that's helped them get to 200 races. But I didn't see anything that explained what it was, and even in their own like marketing for it and their own press releases.
I've not seen anything either.
So, and I've not seen anything zoomed in close enough to be able to clearly read it.
Hang on, I'm doing a zoom and enhance.
Enhance. Zoom, enhance. Zoom it again, enhance it again.
It looks more like a list of names, so it's probably just people who work at the team, I think.
Or whoever paid the highest to get their name on the front wing.
Or that, potentially, yeah. It's all right, though. Looks quite nice.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, it's a nice-looking car. I don't think it's too bad. It's a nice mix between, I guess, where they're at now with the nod to where they started. And it's like a nice mix of the two.
Yeah.
I think.
Paul just said, is Ferrari listed as key personnel?
I think it ought to be.
They do make half the car.
Yeah, I think it ought to be.
A few more on-tracky type things. I guess the big thing this weekend is how are Verstappen and Red Bull going to kind of bounce back and approach things? I mean, from the Red Bull point of view, they seem to struggle for pace last time out, despite bringing some upgrades to Barcelona. Will they have spent some time and be able to make those upgrades work? Do they have any more coming? I mean, was Barcelona just a bit of a bogey track for them?
Yeah, I thought that the pace in Barcelona from a race perspective wasn't as bad as it maybe first looked. Because I guess what you have to remember is they were trying to do that they were trying to do that alternate strategy, that 3-stop strategy, and it all got messed up with the decisions made during that. So I think it's difficult to work out if it was a true reflection or not, because as we said at the time, in reality, they maybe shouldn't have taken that last stop and they should have just stayed out there. And I think either way, they were finishing third. They were finishing best of the rest outside the McLarens, which I think is as much they can hope for. I think the main concern was how much Yuki is still struggling with it. But again, that depends on how many of the upgrades are on his car compared to Max's and so on and so forth. So think it's still a little bit of a grey area, but I think that I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of a quiet weekend generally from Red Bull and Max combined, just trying to exist and avoid drawing attention, especially with the single point before a suspension looming over them. I think the mission objective for this weekend is just quiet, clean weekend, get some solid points. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's fairly quiet overall from a content point of view when it comes to Red Bull.
Yeah, because as you say, Max can't afford any slip-ups. He's so close to that race ban, and he's for a couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah,
a couple of races, I should say.
This and the next one, isn't it? It's the next two that's a potential problem for him.
So it'll be interesting to see if he does change his approach, whether he does, a little more timid going into overtaking route. Honestly, I can't. In the heat of the moment, I can't see him approaching things that much differently. But yeah, be interesting to see. In kind of related news, we should preface this by saying this actually happened before the last race, so it's not because of Max's points, but Red Bull have applied for Arvid Lindblad, who's one of their junior drivers, to have a super license exemption, basically allowing him to drive before his 18th birthday, because one of the super license stipulations is you have to be 18 or over. But you can apply for exemptions to the FIA, and they have applied for an exemption for him. I guess just kind of shoring up and growing their pool of drivers, because obviously you've got Max potentially looking at a ban, but you've also got multiple drivers underperforming in the second Red Bull seat. You've got the sister team, which is always a revolving door. So yeah, I fully expect to see Lindblad in one of their cars as soon as they're able to. Basically, he's very much like the next big thing for them.
Yeah, he's doing okay so far this season in Formula 2 as well. Isn't his third with a couple of wins under his belt? So he's showing good potential at least. I can't see the point in Red Bull changing the second driver again, because it's clear.
I don't think they will this season.
It's becoming clearly a car thing specifically. So I don't think you can say much else about that at the minute. But it does make sense for them to do what they're doing with Arvid, just to make sure that they are covered as a precautionary measure, because he'd have enough points for a super license. He'd just not qualify on the age, right? I think
so. Yeah. So that's
I think he's kind of close enough in that regard. So
yeah, and I mean Red Bull, like a lot of teams, to be fair, but Red Bull especially always like to have the next driver in the queue hanging out in the garage, looking over the existing driver's shoulders, and I've kind of cycled through all of those. So
be interesting which of those garages they put him in. If this time in a garage physically, which one would they put him in?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because obviously Tsunoda's struggling. Lawson's kind of pinballing his way through the season at the moment. Hadjar's the one that's really performing, which is, I think, the last name a lot of people would have expected pre-season.
And that's exactly why he needs to stay where he is.
Exactly, yeah. But no, Lindblad, he's good. He's looking like he's got the business, so he's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Mercedes are another interesting one, because they also seem to struggle a bit in Barcelona, seem to take a bit of a step back. Obviously, they got pole here last year, so be interested to see if they do kind of bounce back and get a bit more in the mix with Red Bull and Ferrari in that sort of second and third place fight.
I mean, other than other than Max kind of taking the wins due to just pure dominance, Mercedes have generally always gone quite well here as well, when you think about it over the years. I mean, obviously they were quite dominant before that, but they've still always been generally in the mix, like last year being a good example. So yeah, I think they'll possibly be one of the teams to to watch to some degree. I remember in the last couple of years, Hamilton managing to pull off a couple of podiums despite the car not being in its best overall. I think there's something about the way that they designed the car that suits this circuit, and then obviously Hamilton used to go well here anyway. So I think that just went hand in hand. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one or both of the Mercedes cars in around the pointy end, maybe pushing the McLarens a little bit, but I feel like they're still on that extra level despite the front wing changes that were meant to mix everything up.
There's made basically no difference, it seems.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. Do you think we'll get everyone in the Wall of Champions this year?
Ooh. I think if it's dry...
I don't feel like we have for a while.
No, I think if it's dry, no. I'm going to say no. Although there are a lot of rookies on the grid this year.
Yeah.
I think we'll see one or two brushes, like flirts with the wall, but I don't think we'll see anyone out and out in the Wall of Champions. That's probably where I think one or two flirts and maybe rear wheel clips with a bit of a snap of oversteer coming out the corner, something like that. But I don't think anything too serious.
It's looking like it's going to be dry for the most part this weekend. I think the only rain forecast at the moment is on Sunday morning. So there's a chance the track might be a bit green and greasy at the start of the race, but it should be dry running all around.
I mean, you say that, but in Montreal, we see rain come from nowhere.
Who knows?
And it's not the greatest weather at the moment, I think. From what I understand, there's a fair bit of rain in the air currently. So some of that, if that's the kind of conditions we're getting, it's same time as year as we normally go there, and we normally have like one wet session on average, if not a couple. So I suppose it just depends on if it does actually land or not. I think it'd be interesting. The rain always adds like a little extra spice to what's going on there. I don't like races that are decided solely on it, but I think Montreal can provide a good race, whether it's wet or dry, usually, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I think the rain just adds that like mix factor where people are risking. That's usually the call at Montreal, isn't it? It's not necessarily so much will it rain, it's when should we make the switch to intermediates. That's always been the gamble at Montreal. So it'd be very interesting to see if it does have any effect. But even if it's not scheduled to at the minute, you never know.
I do always love this track. I feel the last couple of races here haven't been the best, but generally it's a good one.
Agree.
And one last thing to potentially keep an eye on this weekend is Cadillac being kind of in the North American time zone. It feels like things around the driver discussion are picking up pace with Cadillac now. Valtteri Bottas was on the most recent episode of Beyond the Grid. He said he expects to know what he's doing next year by August. But he has spoken to Cadillac, and his plan A is staying in F1. We know Perez has been speaking to them a lot as well. Supposedly Joe Schumacher and Drugovich are kind of on their shortlist as well. So they've got a pretty good pool of drivers to choose from, but it definitely feels like they're getting closer to making some choices now.
I mean, all this is redundant when George Russell goes to Aston Martin to replace Lance Stroll. And Bottas steps back into the Mercedes.
That whole thing just seems to come out of nowhere today, didn't it? Just like, oh, here's a Photoshop of George Russell in Aston Martin overalls.
I think it got started on a rumour mill a few days ago, just because of the whole like Lance Stroll not racing thing. Someone started a rumour, and it's grown some legs.
His management probably have talked to Aston Martin, because right now Russell hasn't got a contract for next year. So if his management started talking to basically every team on the grid, they're not doing their job.
Yeah.
Who do you reckon right now is going to get the Cadillac seats?
I mean, depending on if anything does come of that rumour mill, I wouldn't be surprised with them going relatively safe and doing something like Perez and Bottas. But I can also see them wanting to bring in somebody younger with a bit more potential. So maybe somebody from the IndyCar side of things, or someone like Drugovich, again, depending on what happens with the Stroll scenario.
Yeah.
But I think this is why it's important Aston Martin need to make a decision on what they're doing with the Stroll situation, because if someone like Cadillac do turn around and offer Drugovich a seat for next year, they are stuck if Stroll can't race regularly because of this injury. So they've got to find something else. But yeah, I think the most sensible part of me says that something like Perez and Bottas, just to get off the ground with some essentially steady, reliable drivers. Yes, they're not the cream of the crop, like instant world champions, but they've got race wins under their belts, and they know what it takes to be both in a midfield team, trying to battle there, in back marker teams at times, and being at the pointy end. They've got experience at all the different levels. So no matter where Cadillac initially fall into, that's two drivers that could potentially help them.
Not new territory for them. Yeah, I do wonder with Zhou being on their short list whether, I mean, he would bring a lot of money with him, and it's kind of opening up the Chinese market, which as a car manufacturer is potentially a big deal. So I wonder if maybe you'll end up with Zhou and one of the more experienced guys. Schumacher, I don't think I can see happening, to be honest.
No.
Although I feel like ever since Schumacher lost his F1 seat, basically whenever there's a seat open, his name just gets attached to it regardless. So
yeah,
I don't know if there's that much substance to that.
Yeah, I personally, I can't see Schumacher coming back, but
no,
it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I just don't think it's as likely as some of the other options that are on that list.
And Schumacher's like carving out a decent career for himself in WEC as well right now, so it's not like he's desperate for a seat somewhere.
Yeah, I think sometimes this is the thing, isn't it? Drivers have their attempt at Formula One, doesn't always go as well as people might hope, themselves included. But then they find their craft in another series. Like, I mean, we've always talked about the likes of you Buemis and people like that, Di Grassi, like had okay careers in Formula One, but were just kind of churned out of the system. That is like the likes of Red Bull, but found a home in Formula E and have kind of dominated in that series for a decade, more or less, for some of them. So it's, it just doesn't always work out in Formula One. I mean, there's a reason that there's only 20 seats currently. I know we'll soon change that, but it's always been a fairly elusive sport to be able to get into as a driver, and it doesn't work for everyone. And sometimes drivers look 10 times the driver that they were in Formula One when they go find something that just suits their style a little bit better. And I think Schumacher probably is finding that with World Endurance at the minute. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay in that field.
He's been on the podium twice this season in 3 races. Yeah. So yeah, he's doing well. And the Alpine seems to really getting their stuff together in WEC more so than in F1.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we make some predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix?
Yes, let's indeed. So what we will do is we will go through our predictions for fastest in Q3, race winner, first DNF, number of finishers, and then when we get to the end, we will pick a random driver to predict the position of. If you want to get involved with this whilst listening, you can do. Just head to backofthegrid.com where all the information is on there. You can register to play even if you've not played yet this season. And it's always worth doing so because if you do manage to score 5 out of 5 for a perfect weekend, you do win a prize. Chris, I'm going to make you start us off with fastest in Q3 for this one.
I'm definitely going for a Norris win. I'm trying to decide if I'm going for a Norris pole as well.
Okay.
I think I am. I think I'm going to go for a double Norris this week.
Okay. Well, to keep things interesting, I'm going the opposite McLaren, and I'm going a double Piastri this weekend. yeah, I just think that unless Piastri's off form, Norris isn't quite on his pace most weekends. So, yeah, I think Piastri for me. What about first DNF? What are your thoughts there?
You tend to have some messy stuff going on at this track, don't you? I want to go for maybe I want to go for Ollie Behrman.
Ooh.
A bit of a like midfield tangle on the first lap is what I'm picturing there.
I'm going to. So this is going to be an interesting one. So this will help explain how predictions league works.
I wonder where this is going.
So I'm going to go with Stroll / whoever replaces Stroll. If Stroll ends up in that seat, I'm going in with him as first DNF, or whoever replaces him. The way this will work, for those of you listening and wondering, if you pick Stroll and he is replaced between now, which is the time of recording, is Monday evening, and obviously the start of qualifying, we will substitute out your pick basically for whoever replaces him. Yes. If it happens somewhere between now and then, we'll probably update the entries so that you can actually pick whoever's replaced him officially. But if you have already made your choice, I mean, you can do one of two things. You can go hit the reset button and pick somebody else if qualifying's not already started, or you can just let us automatically switch you over to Stroll's replacement. So that explains that. But yeah, I'm going to go with Stroll. What about number of finishes, Chris?
I'm going to go 15 this week.
Oh, you think there's some chaos?
Yeah, it tends to be at this track. There's not a lot of room for errors.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic and say 16. But I'm kind of with you. With the walls being so close, there's a lot of like heavy braking zones. We've seen brake issues before for people, things like that. So yeah, I'm going to go 16.
And that sort of turn 3, 4, 5 section on lap 1 is very tight.
Yes. I have a shock for you as well, because the random driver.
Oh, it's not, is it?
It's Ollie Behrman.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Stroll.
No. It's Ollie Behrman. I thought you might see it in my face because I swapped tabs to see who we'd drawn, and then I saw it and I was like, "Uh-oh, Chris." So, where do you think Behrman's going to finish? Are you going to hedge your bets, or are you doubling down?
I think I'll hedge my bets again. I've done this before. I'll hedge my bets this week, and I will say Behrman will finish. Say 15 finishes. I'll say he will finish 13th.
Oh, interesting. I'm going to be... Oh, I mean, this is interesting, actually, isn't it? 'Cause it's 16. There's a special livery on that car, though.
I mean, that's a curse right there, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to go a little bit better than you, and I'm going to say 12th. That's what I'm going to go with. A little bit of optimism. So there we go. That is our predictions done. As I said before, if you want to join in, head to backofthegrid.com. All the information is on there, and there's also links there to the 3 fantasy leagues we run, which are a GridRival Fantasy League, the official F1 Fantasy League, and we do also have a GridRival IndyCar League this year. So if you want to get involved with any of those, they're all on the website under the fantasy section.
And that about wraps us up looking ahead to Canada. There is loads going on this weekend. As well as the Canadian Grand Prix, F1 Academy is back this weekend. They've got 2 races, I believe, across the weekend. There's a IndyCar race at some point over the weekend as well. And of course, the Le Mans 24-hour is going on. So lots and lots and lots to keep track of. If you want to have some people to chat to about all that's going on, you can go to patreon.com/backthegrid and find out how to join our Discord community. And I'm sure people will be sort of live chatting pretty much everything that's going on over the whole weekend. If you want to join the prediction league or see where the fantasy leagues are, that's backthegrid.com. And otherwise on all the social media things. So I think that's everything. So we will be back next week to review what will hopefully be an exciting weekend in Canada. And if not, we'll just talk about Le Mans instead. But until then, thanks for joining us and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.